Okay, we're going to study what's called half steps and whole steps. And we're going to start on the first note on fret 5, and then we're going to play the note on fret 6. Whenever you move on, and when we're talking just one string only, when you're on a string and you go one fret up on the same string, that's called a half step. So moving up one fret is called a half step. It's kind of weird. And then if you move 2 frets, in other words, if I play fret 5 and then I skip over fret 6 and play fret 7, that's called a whole step. So moving 1 fret is a half step, moving 2 frets is a whole step, and that's only when you're on a single string, not 2 strings. I'm going to be flashing between me playing it in a video demonstration and the actual fretboard diagram notation, just as a review. And if you forgot what these look like, you're going to have to review the fretboard diagram notation slide, which I believe is 1.3. Okay, we're going from a lower pitch to a higher pitch. So this is referred to as an ascending pattern in half steps. So we're going from a lower note to a higher pitch, a half step up. So therefore it's a ascending half step. Get this sound in your head. All right, now we're going to do a descending half step from the first note. So we're going to play the 5th fret note and go down to the 4th note, and then down in pitch, so therefore it's descending in pitch. So we're playing a descending half step pattern. And again, try to program this sound in your head. Okay, this is called a descending half step. In other words, you're going from the root note, which is a higher pitch, down to a lower pitch, therefore a descending half step. Internalize what a descending half step sounds like, not what frets you're on, not what fingers you're using, but the sound of a half step. All right, now we're going to study whole steps. So all a whole step is, it's 1 fret higher than a half step. So we're going to play the root note, and we're going to do a ascending whole step. In other words, the root note being, we're going to make that the lower pitch of the 2, and then we're going to go to a higher pitch 2 frets up, therefore being a whole step. And again, try to internalize what a whole step sounds like. Don't get caught up in what fingers you're using, what frets you're on, what the note names are, just the sound of a whole step. And after the ascending, we're going to do a descending whole step from the root note, from the 1, from that tonic. So we're calling the tonic, in this case, the higher pitch, and then we're going down a whole step to a lower pitch, in other words, 2 frets down. The descending whole step, starting on fret 5, going down to fret 3. Internalize the sound of the whole step, in this case the descending whole step sound. Think of only the sound, not the fret numbers, not the fingers, not the visual patterns. Don't think of note names if you already know what the note names are, just the sound of a whole step descending. Okay, we're going to learn our first scale, which is going to be a series of an arrangement of whole steps and half steps. However, I'm going to make this lesson a little different. I'm going to tell you what the step pattern is without first demonstrating it for you. I will demonstrate it, but I want you to try to figure the scale out yourself. After I tell you the step pattern, stop the video and try to figure it out yourself. So I'm going to tell you what it is from the first note. In other words, we're starting from the 5th fret, so that note's going to be the 1. We're going to go ascending, so we're going to go, I call it up the neck. What I mean by up the neck is you're going from lower pitches to higher pitches. Because you're going to higher pitches, therefore it's up the neck on, when you're just doing it on a single string horizontally. So going from one fret on the same string to a higher fret is going to a higher pitch, therefore going up the neck. That's what I mean. So we're going to go do an ascending pattern from the fret 5 note, which we're calling the 1. We're going to go a whole step up to the second note of the scale. Then from that second note of the scale, we're going to go another whole step. So far, from the 5th fret, we're going one whole step, another whole step, and then from that 3rd note, we're going to go a half step up to that 4th note. So we're going to go whole step, half step to that 4th note. From the 4th note, we're going to go another whole step to the 5th note. From the 5th note, we're going to go another whole step to the 6th note. From the 6th note, we're going to go yet another whole step up to the 7th note. And then from the 7th note, we're going to go a half step up to that 8th note, which is the octave. And it winds up actually being the same note as the first one, but with a higher pitch. So the pattern goes like this. From the 5th fret note, which we're calling the 1, we're calling it the root, we're going whole step, half step, whole step, half step. So to simplify that, we're going 2 wholes and a half, and then 3 wholes and a half, 2 and a half, 3 and a half. Give it a shot and stop this video, pause it, and then try to figure it out yourself, and then check the demonstration. And remember, do not think of the fret numbers at all. Don't even think of the note names if you know them already. Don't try to understand what the note names are, what the fret numbers are. Just think in pure terms of the whole step and half step sounds only. All right, hopefully you did pause the video and try to figure this out yourself without jumping right away into this. But here's the demonstration. We're going to do it slowly. And I recommend, basically what we're doing is we're programming sounds into our brain. We're basically like computer programmers, but we're note programmers. And we're programming the sounds of whole steps and half steps into our head, and then eventually what the sound of the scale is into our head. And that's all we're doing. So I found a way to internalize this is that we're going to say the number. Remember, there's 8 notes of the scale, right? So there's a 1, there's a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, a 6, a 7, and then an 8. Remember, those are not fret numbers. We're giving the notes, we're assigning them what are called interval numbers. So those numbers assigned to notes are called intervals. So we have a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, a 6, a 7, and then the 8, which is the same note as the 1. So we're going to say the name of the interval. Then we're going to say the name of the step, like what step we're moving up. And then we're going to say the name of the next interval, the number. And saying this out loud and then internalizing what the sound is, a whole step up or a half step up, is going to be huge in programming the sound into your head. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, whole step 2, whole step 3, half step 4, whole step 5, whole step 6, whole step 7, half step 8. Okay, this might be a little bit more difficult. We're going to do it descending, in other words, from that 8th note, and we're going to descend from that 8th note all the way back down to the 1st note. So we're going to say the name of the interval from 8 to 7 to 6 to 5 to 4 to 3 to 2 to 1. We're going to say the name of the interval and then the name of the step and then the name of the next interval. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 8, half step 7, whole step 6, whole step 5, whole step 4, half step 3, whole step 2, whole step 1. That may have been, both of those may have been a bit quick brain-wise to actually comprehend what you're doing. Remember, we don't want to just go through the motions, just say, oh, I played the notes, that's easy. We want to actually understand what we're doing. We want to understand what the interval is, and we want to comprehend the sound of whether or not we're going a whole step or a half step up or a whole step or a half step down, and the sound of that interval and the name of that interval. So you could even turn the metronome off, do this, pause the video, And just do it slowly at your own pace, whether it's in time or not, just to comprehend what you're doing, not just to execute the notes and be the good soldier that plays them on the fretboard only with the right fingers or the right finger patterns, but comprehending exactly what you're doing, the interval composition of the scale and the step pattern. And saying the name of the interval out loud and then the name of the step out loud while you're playing and then the name of the next interval, what that does is it slows the fingers down to match the brain speed. In other words, our fingers, we're trying to get that right finger pattern and it's moving ahead of our brain. So the fingers moving, in the right pattern and whatnot, it does nothing for helping us understand what's going on musically. So what we're doing is we're slowing the whole process down. We're slowing the hands down to match the brain speed, not the other way around. All right, let's try to apply this scale musically. There are actual ways of taking scale tones and arranging them in a way that sounds like a melody, sounds melodic. And we're going to do that against this track. We have a new track. So I get a lot of complaints that are, I guess, legitimate. They'll say, what do I do with this theory? How do I make music with it? Well, we're going to do that right now. We're going to apply this scale in a realistic musical situation against a track. Okay, so if you've been paying attention, the scale that we have been using has 7 different notes, with the 8th note being the same as the first note. So we'll call it 7 notes, really. And each of those notes, we've assigned what's called an interval number. So we have a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, a 6, and a 7. So if you can count to 7 or 8, you're good. So in this case, we did not start on the 1, the note that we're calling the 1. And just to clarify what the 1 is, that's also called the root note, which dictates what key the scale or chord or even entire song is in. We call that the 1 or the root. It's also called the tonic, and it's sometimes called the keynote. So that has a bunch of different names: keynote, tonic, root, or the 1. Anyway, we did not start from the 1, though. We started from the 2. We started from that second note. That's a whole step away from the 1. So we started on the 2, but then we went down in pitch back to the 1, down a whole step, right? Then we went to the 3rd scale tone, which is the next note up from the 2nd scale tone. We went to the 3rd scale tone and then went back down to the 2. So we went 2, 1, 3, 2. Then after that, we went to the 4th scale tone, down to the 3. So we went 2, 1, 3, 2, 4, 3. Then we went up to the 5th scale tone and went 5, 4, and so on and so forth. So the pattern goes like this: 2, 1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 5, 4, 6, 5, 7, 6, 8, 7, 8. The reason we ended on 8 is just to make it sound like it's finished. Kind of hanging on the 7, unless you have developed your ear significantly, it may not necessarily sound like a resolving scale tone. And to keep things simple, we're going to refer to that scale pattern that was just played and described. We're going to call that scale pattern 1 every time. That'll always be scale pattern 1 every single time, until we give it another designation once we know a little bit more about theory. But we're going to call that scale pattern 1. You could actually call it anything you want. You could call it the Easter Bunny if you want, if that's your thing. So we're going to call it scale pattern 1 for the sake of this study and many future ones. Now, go ahead and play scale pattern 1 over the track in quarter notes. You may want to stop the slide with the pattern just to study it. Get it under your fingers first. You know, it doesn't have to be in time, and then put it in time with the track. Okay, and to push ourselves, let's try to play the pattern backwards. So I'm going to tell you what it is, and then let's see if you can do it without watching me do the video demonstration. So pause this video. I'm going to tell you what the pattern is, and then try to play it without being spoon-fed. And then that'll get you in the mode of being able to do things yourself and teach yourself rather than being constantly dictated to what it is, okay? But I am going to demonstrate it after this. So here's the pattern. So going backwards, in other words, going from the higher pitched where the 7 and the 8 are, descending in pitch back down to that low 1, in other words, going down the neck. This pattern in reverse, we're going to actually start it on the 7. And then we're going to go 7, 8, 6, 7, 5, 6, 4, 5, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1, 2, and then just end on the 1. Okay? Pause this video, try it yourself. You can even look at the screen at what the pattern is and try to figure it out. All right, here's the video demonstration. So remember, the whole purpose of this lesson is to actually know what we're doing. In other words, it's not just the how, we're working on the why. You may not know why, but we're working towards that. So this is less of a, okay, make a great tone and play it in time. This is more about understanding the notes of the scale and the relationships and the interval numbers and, you know, whether it's a half step or whole step away, things like that. So remember our first exercise, you would say the name of the interval, then the name of the step out loud, and the name of the next interval while you're playing at the same time. Hopefully in time, but for right now, you don't have to put it in time. So remember, we'd go 1, whole step 2, whole step 3, half step 4, whole step 5, whole step 6, whole step 7, half step 8, and then backwards, okay? 8, half step 7, whole step 6, whole step 5, whole step 4, half step 3, whole step 2, whole step 1. All right, once you understand that on your guitar and you're able to do that, say it out loud and play it at the same time and understand what those notes are and their steps away, then you can do the scale pattern 1 and work towards understanding that. And again, you don't have to play it to the track. You can, or the metronome, you can just turn the metronome off and try to understand it. So while you're playing, say the name of the interval out loud while you're playing. So you'd go 2, 1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 5, 4, 6, 5, 7, 6, 8, 7, 8. And then you would go backwards, 7, 8, 6, 7, 5, 6, 4, 5, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1. And if you do that, 5 minutes a day even, you will understand that scale completely, and you'll know what it sounds like, and you'll be able to play a lot of things by ear without having to know what you're doing, just because you have it. You've programmed it ahead of time, and then you can just play and let that scale be musical rather than a theoretical exercise. This doesn't seem like we did much, but this is going to conclude this introduction to theory, just because you really need to understand this stuff, and it is kind of mentally exhausting to where you want to take some headache medicine after you do it. So it's understood, but we're going to stop here, and then there will be another theory lesson that follows this.